Warning, the following podcast is brought to you by dads who are still figuring out how to fold a fitted sheet. Welcome to the All Pro Dad Podcast.
Hey, welcome to the All Pro Dad Podcast. My name is Ted Lowe, and I'm joined today by my buddy, Mr. BJ Foster.
Hey, Ted.
BJ, welcome.
Thank you.
Hey, today we're talking about what it means to be our kids' protectors.
So I came across this story in 2017, the Tubbs Fire, one of the most destructive fires in history in California, starts to sweep across California. Came across this family of 6, 2 parents, 4 kids. This dad, Anolfo Casillas. The fire's descending. You can imagine, what am I going to do? It's surrounding them. And he makes a very brave, wise, heroic decision to get his family out and to get them in the swimming pool. So there's all this heat, everything is descending upon them, and he gets his kids and he's putting them under the pool into the pool to kind of keep them away from the fire. And in the midst of this, even though he was burned severely, was able to keep his entire family safe. So just an amazing, heroic action from this one particular dad.
I love that. He was the man that day, right? Yeah. When we talk about being protected, though, it's not just those types of situations. It's not the superhero actions. It's the everyday things that happen with our kids. But the thing I think we got to wrap our arms around is every dad has to be their kid's protector. So BJ, how do we do this? How can we be our kid's protector?
I think by caring for them and acting selflessly, thinking about them, putting them first.
How'd your dad protect you growing up?
My dad, it was kind of interesting. I think he was much more a preparer than anything. I think my dad was big into experience produces a lot of things, even failure and difficulty. So I think he would kind of have me go out there and experience stuff. And then when it was too much, then he would step in and kind of do things. But in the midst of everything going on, he would let me experience, give me comments and wisdom, and hey, you may want to do this, you may want to do this. But then if my circumstances were overwhelming, then he'd step in.
Well, that's good.
I mean, I'll never forget it. I think at one point, I was being bullied pretty mercilessly. It was awful. It came to a head one day. My mom is very tough and kind of a fighter, and she grabbed the bully and I and just put us in the backyard and said, "You guys fight." And we fought and I lost. And that can be a super humiliating. That's a very humiliating experience. Yeah. You get bullied, you fight them, you lose. That can bring on more torment. And that's when my dad stepped in and met with his dad. And from that day on, not only did I not get bullied anymore, but he was kind to me.
So your dad stepped in and met with the other kids.
Right.
Dad going, no more.
Well, he didn't really. It was interesting the way he did it. He kind of said, your son, and he said all true things. He said, your son's a leader. He is a leader. People follow him. And yet this is how he's using his leadership capability. And he has so much more potential to it. And he even told, he told the other dad, he said, "I think your son could be president." But in the way that he applies himself, if he applied it this way instead of this way, it would be much more fruitful. And I think that made an impact.
Wow. And so instead of getting out his angst on this other dad.
No, yeah.
Yeah, he did the right thing.
Yeah, he kind of thought,
what's to be the president?
What's the best for all kids in this situation?
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, that leads us to our big question of the week is, how can dads be the protector of their kids? How do we do that?
Yeah. Well, I think number one, you got it. We offer physical protection, preventing injury, giving physical security. I think dad's presence alone, I think, kind of offers that to kids. I remember, I don't know if this is true for you, but when my dad, he was in sales, he'd be gone for 3 weeks. But when he came home, there was just something that felt like I was safer, like when he kind of stepped into
just his presence, let's protect her, strength in the home.
Yeah, we're bigger. we're stronger. We can step in and we can offer that shield and security, and we need to be that and take that seriously for our kids, especially when they're little. I mean,
absolutely. You see dads, they'll grab their kids' arm to keep them from stepping or stopping. With part of having ADHD is like lack of impulse control. And so my dad had to do that way too long, but he would throw his hand in front of me or grab me by the arm. It would just be those things. And I remember thinking when I was with him that he was going to help that. He wasn't going to respond to that, which leads to our second one. And that is being the protector emotionally, that when our kids come to us, that we protect them by being calm and let them cope and figure out all these difficult emotions, because it's just not the case for so many dads with, what are you doing? Knock it up, knock it off, grow up, stop it, reel that back in. So it's just so huge to be their protector emotionally by letting them have emotions, not be disrespectful, but I'm going to remain calm and I'm going to be safe. I'm going to feel like a protector because I'm so safe to talk to.
And I think that's something that dads, struggle with. That's one that doesn't come easily to us because in order to do that, you kind of have to sit in some discomfort.
Yeah, for sure.
You got to be willing to kind of go, okay, like we just want to, if you're anything like me, I just want to wrap it up. Yeah. I just want to tie this off. I want everything to be okay. And I want to wrap it up quick. Whereas, they are a person who have difficult emotions. They have sorrow. They have, and if you're going to be a safe place, you're going to have the willpower to sit in that with them.
The willpower. That's the perfect way. I've always been naturally a fixer and a teacher. Let me fix this. Let me teach. That's been the toughest thing. But like you said, it's the willpower to sit there, being comfortable for them and for you, because I want to rescue my kids. Right. I want to emotionally jump in, put them in the pool. Right. And it's a totally different kind of strength, right? Oh. When it's emotional.
I feel like it takes more strength.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I can do that. I'll throw you in the pool all day long.
Right.
But I think it's being there for them emotionally. I was at the gym and I watched these 3 kids, teenagers, and they're being, as my dad says, knuckleheads. And this guy comes over from the gym and he tells them, calm down. They start cussing him out, but one of them does. And so next thing I know, he's taking them almost like the principal's office. Right. And so I didn't think anything else about it. And then I go to this other section and I can see the kid sitting there in a glass office, just looking like he was, he just looked way cowered down. And it wasn't the kid that was screaming. And so he's sitting there. So I watched, who I found out later was the kid's dad. And he starts walking. He walks into the office. He stays about 30 seconds. He steps out and he goes, I don't care what you do with the kid. I wasn't there. I don't know what happened. And he turned around and walked out. Now, there's part of me thinking, hey, good. Let the kid fight his own battles. You did this. You have the consequences. But at the same time, when he says, I don't care. I don't know what happened.
Right.
Why don't you know? And why don't you care? And why don't you find out what happened?
Right.
Like, that's your kid. You don't know this guy probably that's working at the gym. And then I watched the dad step out and he's frustrated. And the kid walks right past dad, doesn't look at him. He stands by the elevator. He crosses his arm. And now you can see this look in the dad's eye, like, now I'm afraid. Like it was this thing, it was disconnected on both ends. I'm so frustrated to this kid's like, oh, I've done something. Now we're distant. So I think it's in those moments that we're calm, not that we don't get consequences, but they need to know that we are seeking, that we care more about them. We're going to give them the benefit of the doubt first, and then we'll deal with it. But it was just one of those moments. I said, oh, bud, you need to be there.
Yeah.
For your dad.
I think that's one of the biggest parts about being a protector is you have to be engaged.
Right.
You have to engage. Like that's one of the things, when we watch Top Gun, it's like Maverick engaged. It's like he's entering into the battle. You can handle that situation in a lot of different ways. Like he could have gone in and said, yeah, you shouldn't have done that. Kick him out. And you know what? I'm going to have a discussion with you when we get home about, how you're supposed to talk to people. And that's another way of preparing them and protecting them for later in terms of their relationships.
Love that.
But to kind of disassociate yourself That's the thing. It's just kind of like, it feels like in that story, I'm going to remove myself from the situation. That I think is disengagement. And that's a problem there. There's no protection in there. There's no fathering going on there. And that's a problem.
It is. And we can't walk away when it's hard.
Yeah.
Right? We just can't. And some of the most regrettable moments for me as a dad is when my kids would argue back. Like they weren't listening to the teaching.
Yeah.
And I would say, I can't deal with this right now. Walk away. And it breaks my heart now thinking about it. And my daughter said to me, she goes, when you do that, it really hurts, which, I did that to baby girl. You know what I mean? And I think about it now. And I think, if I do that to her, she's going to expect her future husband to do that to her. This is what we do when I get emotional. It's not safe. He doesn't stay when it's hard. And we've got to be their protector mentally. Right. We got to help guide them through challenges. Yes. And there are times we offer advice, but it's not in the middle of the emotion. Right. And we have to help them to develop resilience. And I think about the example in the gym. That would have been a great opportunity for this dad. Yeah. Probably later. Probably it's not a big teaching moment then, but to be, hey, we're going to talk about this and we're going to process this.
I remember you telling me that story before and being like, well, good. That's what, hey, I kick him out. But we need to be engaged though, while we let them experience these things. And they do need to experience these things. They need to experience difficulty, and we can't always just be in front of, being a protector doesn't mean being in front of them, plowing everything out of the way.
Right.
Like I'll never forget a great reminder of this for me. This is one of my sweetest moments as a dad. We had one of those baby pool slides in the backyard, and it had sprinklers on it. And I was crawling around in there with my kids, and my daughter was, I think she was like 2, maybe 3 years old. And I was just kind of crawling around on all floors, and so was she, and the water's coming down on us. And the sprinklers are hitting her head, and she crawled like underneath me and just kind of sat underneath my shield to shield her from the rain that was, from the sprinklers that was coming down. And this is always a reminder of this role of protector that dads play. But it's also a great reminder that my job is not to just shelter over her for her entire life, that she's going to need to step out at some point or another and face the rain. And how do I guide her in that? How do I teach her in that?
So good. So good. Those kind of stories, they're just inspiring to me, for lack of a better word. Just, I want to be this. Like I want to be this protector for my kids. Another way we need to be protective of our kids is socially, and when we do need to advocate for them, we're protecting their reputation or ensure they're treated fairly, like to be involved. We talk a lot about social media here, to be involved in that and going, are they being protected? One of the examples for me, I think I've told it on the podcast before, but I think it speaks to so much what we're talking about, was I got unfairly accused of doing something at school. And a lot of kids were mad at me. The principal was livid with me and wouldn't hear a word that I said. And so my dad had always handled things like, hey, if you got in trouble at school, you got in trouble at home. Like there wasn't a lot of questions asked. But during this, he saw how much it meant to me. He said, do you want me to go there? And do you want me to wipe the halls with this guy's butt? Now, this was the 80s.
Right.
So we're not advocating for that. I didn't want him to. I didn't want him to make it worse, but I have never felt more protected socially than I did in that moment. Right.
Yeah.
And so being a protector is just so huge socially, protecting them by what are you watching online? What are people saying to you and protecting their heart?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think there's that aspect of it, which is absolutely 100%. Then there's this other aspect of just preparing them for the dangers that are out there kind of socially. I think in particular females. I had a friend who was just out at a bar one night, and so a guy put something in her drink. And so all of a sudden her thoughts aren't coming clearly. She can't figure things out. It's like time disappears. Like she would be at a table 1 minute and then the next minute she would be in the bathroom and not know how she got there. And then she would, and then there was this guy who was constantly flashes of him in her face the entire night. And he's the guy that put it in. And fortunately, she was able to get away, and it didn't get worse than it was. But there are plenty of stories out there of things that have happened to others that didn't turn out as well. And so preparing them for the dangers like that. Hey, what are you going to encounter? Hey, when you head out here into this dark place, or where there might be people lurking, or there might be people out there that mean ill will, and you need to be on the lookout for those things and how to handle that. You might have friends that seem like friends, but they're undercutting you. And we're able to see all those angles where they're not as able to easily see them.
My kids refer to my dad as OSHA, just because he is the ultimate, like, here's what could happen. This could go wrong. This. So my whole life, it was always worst case scenario. We would drive down the road and he goes, a car just pulls out in front of you. What do you do? What do you do? Hit him, crash. You can't do me like that. He literally brought orange flags to our house, like you do when the sprinkler systems come, to all the places that his grandchildren could be hurt. So that was a little bit overkill, but I think protecting our kids to talk to them, hey, here's what could happen. Here's what people are doing, and even like being able to do things like with their cars, to say, hey, what happens if your car breaks down? Like, do you get on the side of the road? Do you wait? How does that work? My daughter, she calls me and she said, Dad, there were two guys standing around and I was the one that changed the tire. She felt so empowered by that, but I never wanted her to feel like a damsel in distress during those types of situations. And so protecting them is those things, like you said, protecting them from things that could happen. Go, oh, I remember my dad saying this. They'll probably roll their eyes sometimes when you're telling the story, but it's always amazing when they do those things that we told them, oh, you actually listen. That's amazing.
So finally, I would say another way we can protect our kids is spiritually. And there might be plenty of guys who are listening to this podcast who might not believe in God or anything like that, and that's fine. But the reality is that praying for your kids is never going to hurt. The reality is that there may be a God who exists, and there may be a God who cares. And so praying protection over your kids, not just physically, but praying for their thoughts, how they think about themselves, how they think about other people, all of those things at a bare minimum, it's going to get you to focus in and think about your kids and their needs and where you need to step in. Like bare minimum, it's focused thinking on your kids. However, that's like the very least. The very greatest aspect is that there is a God of the universe who created everything, who could potentially want to be intimately involved in protecting and guiding your kids. And so praying for your kids is never going to hurt. It's only going to help. So praying over their, and so that's something that I believe wholeheartedly and sincerely, is that there is a God who loves my kids more than even I do. And so I am going to invite that God to come in and help me protect by all means.
I love that. Me as well. I mean, that's a huge thing. And it's, like you said, calms us down, right? It's praying for our kids is also helping us, posturing us in a good way, for sure. And with that, BJ, let's go to our pro move of the week. This week, be looking for an opportunity to be more of a protector of your kids.
Yeah. So think physically, what can I do? Emotionally, what can I do? Mentally, how can I protect them? Socially, how can I protect them? And spiritually, you pick one of those five and see what's one thing that you can add. What's one thing that you can improve on?
BJ, thank you. Great discussion. Yeah. Hey, if you've enjoyed today's podcast and you enjoy All Pro Dad resources, just go to allprodad.com and you'll find a lot of good tools there. But most of all, we want to say thank you. Thank you for listening. We know that you and your kids will be glad that you did.
Thanks again for listening to the All Pro Dad podcast. Behind every episode is our amazing team. Producer Haley Mawat, audio and video editor Buck Buchanan, and production coordinator Corey Walliff. All Pro Dad is the fatherhood program of the nonprofit Family First. Along with our motherhood program, iMom, we exist to help you love your family well. So remember, if you have more questions than answers, then you're probably in the right place. See you next time.